Okay, well, so with this presentation, I wanted to do a little bit of a context setting, I guess, on the way we at W3C kind of approach the metaverse. But some of the points that I raised in these slides, we're already starting to discuss them. I mean, Sanjay raised some of them already, so that's actually quite great. I may not spend a hell of a lot of time on them just because, well, I see they're already being raised. So I wanted to, I guess, with this presentation, introduce some high-level needs that I see for a 3D friendly web as an attempt to scope the work that this group, or rather the working group that could be created, could do on the topic. So the, how do I change my slides? I go there. So I guess we'll all agree, and I won't spend time on it, that we don't have a precise definition of what the metaverse is, but there's general agreement that is going to encompass experiences that better combine the physical world and the virtual world or the online world, and that the ability to interact with people in virtual worlds and experience things together, like in real life, is deeply ingrained in that concept. I'll stop at that. I don't think I want to go into more details there. And the promise of the metaverse is really to eventually merge all the positive aspects of the physical world with the positive aspects of the online or the virtual world. It's to create that unique and immersive place that binds us all together and that allows us to overcome all physical barriers. That's a fantastic promise, of course. It doesn't come with problems. It creates, and there are a number of hurdles along the way that would make it
François,
easy.
Just one question.
Yeah.
Will this presentation be available?
It's already, yeah, it's published, but I'll share them. I can share the link probably. Where is it? I'll share the link afterwards because
No problem.
otherwise I'm going to lose my screen. Yep. But I think it's already been uploaded on the PDF version has already been uploaded on the portal. So there are hurdles along the way that could make it easy to hit a wall instead of creating the metaverse that we all dream about. One, let's say, basic core issue is the risk of falling into a proprietary trap. And it's not because companies are, in a sense, evil. It's because simply they need to make money somehow. They need to have a business model. And so there's a balance to be found between, having a fantastic open metaverse where everything, users can freely wander and making money out of it. So the problem is if we fall into this proprietary trap, of course, we will end up with a siloed metaverse, and a siloed metaverse is not going to be the metaverse. It's going to be a collection of metaverses. And that's, I guess, something that we may want to avoid. A side but related issue is not addressing accessibility, privacy, security issues right from the start. It's always harder to look into and look at these after the fact. It usually doesn't work very well. So with that, now let's turn to the web platform. The web platform, the pitch is very similar to that of the metaverse in practice. It is really all about connecting people and sharing things together. So it really has the exact same hurdles, and the way they are being addressed is through a set of core principles that we try to keep in mind and that we try to apply, more importantly, and that we try to respect when we develop web standards. And these sets of core principles include accessibility, internationalization, privacy, security. What I list here as universality, which is kind of a one web vision that we have. I mean, it works across devices. The same content can work whatever the device and the user, the context that the user is in. And something that I list as royalty-free, meaning to avoid proprietary technology, we try to create a platform that can be implemented by everyone and that can be shared, broadly speaking, without problem, without being encumbered. And at the very center of all of this, there's this notion of a user agent, and Sanjay, you mentioned it already. It mediates access to web content on behalf of users. And it, in theory, at least, I mean, in practice as well, it is not under the control of the content provider themselves. It's really in the control of the user. It's on behalf of the user. I know if we combine the two, the web and the metaverse, well, of course, I have a biased approach to this because I've been with the B3C for way too long already. But it seems to me that the web platform is a very good foundation for creating the metaverse that people could be dreaming about. So, in other words, the metaverse could be seen, could perhaps be seen as an evolution of the web. But for that to happen, we need to understand what's missing indeed. And we mentioned that evolution of the user agent already. The problem is, well, problem as I see it, at least, the core problem is that the web is 2D content at its heart, and it's even worse than that in practice. It's worse. It's not worse, but it's the web is essentially 1D content rendered onto a 2D screen. I mean, HTML is a really linear thing, and you just render it on a 2D screen. And no surprise here. That means that web browsers are essentially 2D user agents in practice. And so if we want to create a metaverse that is based on web technologies, we'll need to morph these user agents into 3D user agents somehow. And that goes beyond mere support for 3D content in user agent. But it starts with it. And so that brings it to 3D, that brings us to 3D on the web and where we are right now. And where we are right now is 3D on the web is totally doable, and it's actually doable with very good performance, but it's very low level. What you have is a canvas, and you draw your pixels onto a canvas. And fantastically, you have access. You can harness the power of the GPUs to draw triangles, and that's done through WebGL. And we're working on the evolution of WebGL called WebGPU and its companion shading language. So both of them allows you to draw triangles, and from triangles, you're supposed to figure out how you're going to do 3D. And so there's no notion of 3D asset. There's no notion of texture. I mean, there is a notion of texture, but there's no agreement on formats for assets, texture, scenes. There's no text. You're on your own if you want to render text in 3D on the web, and that's a bit. There was an article published a couple of days ago, or perhaps even yesterday, was talking about Web GPU, and that say it's a bit weird because we have the web browser is one of the most advanced text renderer that exists, and yet when you're in a 3D environment, suddenly you can't render it. And we talked about user interaction as well. Right now, if you want to handle user interaction on the web with 3D content, that's entirely up to you as an application. Looking at XR experiences on the web, it's essentially the same thing, except you don't have one canvas, you have two. You have one per eye, and with that, you have a set of device APIs that allow you to track the user's pose and gestures. And that's how you're going to know what pixels to render in each of your canvas and create the stereoscopic image that in the end is going to create that immersive 3D experience. Along with that, W3C is working on a number of modules, WebXR modules for augmented reality that ease blending of the physical world with the virtual world, and that's all great. But there again, it's a very low-level approach. we've worked in a separate group in W3C on accessibility user requirements for XR. And it's not clear that we really are addressing these requirements today with this low-level approach on the web. That's an open question how accessibility can be addressed throughout. So there are some ongoing proposal or evolution to work that would turn these 2D user agent into something that looks closer to what we could call a 3D user agent. Here I'm using a 2.5D analogy, but of course it's completely wrong, but just as a pun more than anything else. So one of these proposals is to make 3D a first-class citizen on the web through the creation of a dedicated HTML element called the model element. It's just a proposal for now, but that would create the equivalent of the image tag for 3D content. And another proposal is to allow rendering regular web content, I mean a web page, within an XR experience with this WebXR DOM overlays module. And that seems to be something that you absolutely need to have in order to be able to browse within an immersive experience. If you want the user to remain within that immersive experience, and they need some ways to browse to somewhere else. So where am I? So with that, I'll summarize in the interest of time. I'm done with that. I'm done here with this slide. Hope I wasn't too long. So right now, the approach taken so far on the web has been to enable 3D and immersive experiences through a low-level approach, and that works. And that low-level approach, the fantastic enabler, it does not create the necessary conditions to make user agents 3D user agents. And creating these necessary conditions is going to be a long journey. I mean, we talked to you, Nicolas, you mentioned milestones. Right now, we're at the beginning, essentially, in terms of web browsers. We have this low-level approach, but we don't necessarily have the vision of when we can move to beyond that and create something else. So what we need, though, I think in terms of scoping, is it's clear that we need semantics that go beyond pixels. So we need to be able to describe a 3D scene somehow, and that's needed for accessibility and privacy reasons. That does not necessarily mean that we absolutely need a declarative approach. The web has evolved since it started 30 years ago. Happy birthday, the web. We used to have a very declarative approach for accessibility things with ARIA, and we're moving to a more semi-imperative one, so the API is possible as well. Makes the burden more on it puts the burden more on developers, but at least it makes things possible. On top of semantics, we discussed user interaction. For me, I find it difficult to leave user interaction on the side. There's a parallel here that we can also make with the web. Initially, the web was limited to following links, and then we added forms, and with forms came more logic, and then all sorts of APIs, and in the end, you end up with an application platform, and so the web has become a fantastic platform for handling user interaction. That's great. And the metaverse won't even start with a read-only theater-like experience. I guess the user will interact with content from the ground up in an immersive world. So the more immersive the experience, the more interactivity you're going to get. And so you absolutely need to support for user interaction baked in a 3D formats or 3D whatever we end up discussing or finding solution for object handles, buttons, interaction mechanism, that kind of thing. There are two more here that could be more open questions, perhaps. There's the question of sandboxing that could also be discussed. Immersive experiences, of course, they're immersive by definition, and so that means they are somewhat full screen. As I'm sharing my content here, it's full screen, and yet for user actions to remain safe in an immersive environment, these actions again they need to be mediated through a user agent, and that means we need ways for the user agent to prompt the user and probably mechanisms for embedding third-party content within an immersive experience. In a safe way. I mean, of course, the typical scenario is a payment in an immersive experience, for instance. In the end, it may be that we don't need to look into that right now at this stage. We could leave it up to user agent to figure out such mechanism initially. It may also be that the WebXR DOM overlays module that I mentioned in the previous slide is enough to start with to embed external content. It won't be 3D content that you embed, but it would be at least a way to embed external content in a 3D world. And last but not least, and I think that Sanjay, is it Sanjay? Yeah, I think you mentioned it as well. There's another dimension that I think we should look at, and that's certainly not the easiest one, is that a core promise of the web platform is that the same content will work across devices. And when the mobile web was still seen as something different from the usual web, we argued in the end successfully that there was no reason to develop web content differently for mobile and for desktop, and that progressive enhancement could be used. And yet I don't know today how to tell the same story for the metaverse or for 3D immersive experiences. I mean, they are built separately. I don't know how to build an experience today that is, works on my mobile, works on the desktop, and would create a fantastic or even acceptable 3D experience. They seem to be somewhat separated. Maybe that's not a big deal, but it was one of the, again, core principles of the web. Okay, so that's more a wish list, perhaps that is a wish list on my side than a real thing. I just wanted to go through that list. That's it from me. I see a queue, so I don't know how you want to proceed. Nicolas, I see Sanjay on the queue.
Yeah, go ahead. We can do some questions for François.
So François, what my take is like, this time around we are avoiding the flash, kind of a thing, and instead, having, as you said, elements defined in the browser itself, like, starting with the HTML video tag equivalent right off the bat. Is that the correct understanding?
The model element is indeed the proposal to allow embedding a 3D scene in an HTML page. Again, that won't turn the user agent into what we could call the 3D user agent. It just provides a way to, as you say, exactly the same as a video tag, to have native support for something. And it does beg the next immediate question, which is, okay, what are the formats that browsers are going to support for the model tag? Because right now they don't have to take sides in a way, because it's up to the application with WebGPU or WebGL to figure out whatever it wants to, whatever formats it wants to use, and to prepare the texture as required by the APIs.
Isn't it a little bit more than that? Because the thing is, like, when you have the video tag, you render the video. But when you talk about this model, it is input and output. In the sense, it's a full-on 3D renderer that gets invoked, and this model not only reacts to events from, the outside of the world, from over the network, but also what the user is doing. As like, Nicolas was saying, is like, I want to turn the car left, it turns left. So there is all of that. It seems to me like, it's a step towards building in a full-on renderer into the browser, essentially.
So it's just one step. I don't think I wouldn't view the model element as trying to do everything. It's just a minor step on the way to what you describe. It doesn't want to be everything. It's just a way to, again, the main use case would be an e-commerce website that want to render 3D models of its product, for instance. And you would be, through the model element, and through the user agent, you would be able to, rotate the 3D model and view it from different angles, and that's the kind of thing. But it's not meant to be the absolute element that is going to be a starting point of a completely immersive experience.
Oh, thank you.
So, I would like to sort of vamp on that a little bit, Francois, because I agree that we have this sort of separation, and historically it's been around this idea of like a polyfill, right? Your JavaScript is the thing that is your sort of render and application. It's what's talking to WebGL or WebGPU, right? But hey, what if it could also talk to the DOM, right? And that's really what in the Web3 consortium, and for many years the open source projects have been doing it that way. So if you treat all the stuff inside the 3D scene as addressable through the DOM, whoa, you'd be amazed what happens with callbacks and things. And we can talk about that case later.